Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everybody. Once again, Ramadan Mubarak. It's the third day of fasting, fourth night of Taraweeh, inshallah. I hope everybody's been having a good fast. Hope it's been easy for everybody. Hope everybody's been using the best of their time. You know, with most of us sitting at home with our families. Hopefully, we're making it productive in terms of our worship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, reading more Qur'an, doing more adhkar, praying together in jama'ah with the family, or listening to some beneficial lectures during the day, inshallah ta'ala. So we are on the third juz, and you know it's still Surah Al-Baqarah. So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursaleen nabiyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd. So you can see that Surah Al-Baqarah, I mentioned, is the longest surah in the Quran. It spans over 50 pages, and a juz is on average 20 pages depending on the type of mushaf you're using. If you're using the one with the 15-line mushaf that's popular, the one from Medina, right, the printing complex in Medina, then each juz is about 20 pages, except for juz amma. It's a few pages longer, maybe like 22 pages. So we are still on Surah Al-Baqarah, but we can't really conclude Surah Al-Baqarah without first reviewing the first two ajazat, because that's also Surah Al-Baqarah. So we know that the Surah Al-Fatiha opens up the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is called Fatihatul Kitab, the opening of the book. And everything that is mentioned in Surah Al-Fatiha, you can say that the rest of the Qur'an is an explanation for that, right? Because what does it do? Surah Al-Fatiha mentions Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and describes him and him being the most merciful, him being the master of the Day of Judgment, our worshipping of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, only worshipping him and only turning to him for assistance or help. And then the surah ends with speaking about how those who are rightly guided, right? We make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ihdina as-siratal mustaqim, guide us on the straight path. Who's on the straight path? Those who has earned your favor, right? An'amta alayhim, you have bestowed your favor upon. غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ, not those who have earned your anger, nor those who have gone astray. And then Surah Al-Baqarah, it categorizes who those three people are again, right? The mu'minun. الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ وَيُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةَ وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْكَ وَمَا أُنزِلَ مِنْ قَبْلِكَ وَبِالْآخِرَةِ هُمْ يُوقِنُونَ. And so it talks about who are the believers. Then it talks about who are the disbelievers, right? The second category. And then it talks about the third category, which are the hypocrites. And then it goes on to speak about who some of the people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did bestow his favor upon, but then they rejected it, or they turned away from it, or they didn't continue to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Mainly the children of Israel. Because between Ibrahim alayhi salam, after his sons Ismail and Ishaq, all of the prophets came through Yaqub alayhi salam and his sons. So that is why most of the stories mentioned in the Quran have some connection to Bani Israel. Majority of the stories in the Quran speak about Bani Israel. The prophet mentioned the most in the Quran, Musa alayhi salam, was from Bani Israel. So Bani Israel was given so many favors, and they were chosen. They were chosen over the rest of mankind had they only continued to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his commandments and follow the messengers that he sent to them. But they chose not to obey all of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's commands, or they tried to work around it, or they tried to change it themselves, or inserted commands that were not from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they would pick and choose what to follow and who to follow, they didn't accept all of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's prophets and messengers, right? They didn't follow all of them. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he became angry with them. They earned his wrath and anger. You know, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is angry with you, then there's nobody that can save you. And then he mentions the ones who went astray, because they're the ones who were given the message, but then they also themselves, they chose not to follow the teachings of the prophets that were sent to them, and they chose other teachings to follow, or they changed the religion. And these are the people who are not the people who are under Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's favor. And you know, the second juz, I mentioned all of those things yesterday, where it talks about some of the rules and regulations, because being somebody who earns the favor of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not just about worship itself, right? There's other things as well that govern our lives. The laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala apply to every single aspect of our lives. We don't just, you know, we're not just a religion based on rituals. We don't just pray 5 times a day and that's our Islam. No, it governs the way we deal with each other. I mentioned when somebody is killed, it gives ayat about the reparations that need to be given. It talks about the commandment of fasting, the commandment of Hajj, some of the rulings that have to do with Hajj, some of the rulings that have to do with divorce and with becoming a widow, right? If your spouse passes away, if a woman's husband passes away, what they have to do, because Islam governs all aspects of our lives, and not just, you know, the worshiping part of it, right? There's when you have books of fiqh, they're divided into 2 parts mainly, right? You have ibadat and you have mu'amalat, right? The ibadat are like the actions of worship that you do, you know, salah, siyam, hajj, zakah, and then mu'amalat becomes you know, everything else, right? Marriage contracts, divorce, buying and selling, right? Transactions, giving loans. All of these things are governed by the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well, because Islam is a religion based on justice, and we have to be just in all of our dealings, all of our interactions between human beings, right? Not just our interaction with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Us being just with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is worshiping only Him, because that is His right. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's right over us is that we only worship Him and Him alone, right? That is us being just with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But we have to be just with one another as well. So these things are very important, and you can see that from the different ayat that come about in these surahs. And I mentioned especially the Madani surahs. The Madani surahs have this because, you know, you don't just start off with telling people to believe in Allah and then you can't do this, you have to do this, no. You have to start off by preaching about the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, letting the people know who is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that they can truly believe in Him, so that when they are faced with the rules and the laws and the rest of the Sharia, they can easily accept it, because they know it's coming down from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is the most just, and who is the most wise, and who is the all-knowing and the all-powerful, so you can accept it more easily. And so the surah I mentioned in and of itself, not only does it have rules and regulations and laws and stories, but it also encompasses all of the articles of Islam, right? The 5 pillars, and all of the articles of faith. It mentions, you know, having faith in Allah. It mentions His angels, mentions books, it mentions the prophets, it mentions the Day of Judgment, it mentions belief in the qadr of Allah. All of these things are spoken about in Surah Al-Baqarah. And there's a hadith, although it's a da'if hadith, there's nothing wrong with the meaning of the hadith. It says that everything in this world has a peak, right? It has a hump. So the peak of the Qur'an is Surah Al-Baqarah. The peak of the Qur'an is Surah Al-Baqarah. This is such a great surah, because in this surah there's so many great ayat. And now we'll get into the third juz, because in the third juz, the very first page, ayat 255, you'll see is Ayatul Kursi. And Ayatul Kursi is the greatest ayah in the Qur'an. And this is mentioned in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. He mentions that this is the greatest ayah of the Qur'an. And in other hadith or other narrations mentioned, there were 4 revelations that came from the treasures from under the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, under his kursi, his arsh, right? Under his arsh. What are those 4? I mentioned 2 of them before, right? One was the famous hadith where the door opened in the skies and the angel came down and he said that I bring to you the 2 lights, Fatihatul Kitab and the end of Surah Al-Baqarah. These 2 are said to be from the treasure of from under the arsh, the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The other one is Surah Al-Kawthar, so that's number 3, and then Ayatul Kursi. So you have Surah Fatiha, Ayatul Kursi, the last ayahs of Surah Al-Baqarah, right? The ones with Amana Rasulu and La Yukallifullahu Nafsan Illa Wusaha, which we'll get into later, and Surah Al-Kawthar. These 4 are said to be from the treasure beneath the arsh of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, but before you get to even Ayatul Kursi, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions 2 other things. The first one is that He has given preference to other prophets, right? تِلْكَ الرُّسُلُ فَضَّلْنَا بَعْضَهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ. He has preferred some over the other. Right? Some مِنْهُمْ مَنْ كَلَّمَ اللَّهُ. Allah spoke directly to them. وَرَفَعَ بَعْضَهُمْ دَرَجَاتٍ. And He has raised some of them in ranks. Right? And then He mentions Isa alayhi salam. Because why? This continues from speaking about Bani Israel. They were given all of the prophets until Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Only the final messenger didn't come to them. Between Yaqub and Isa alayhi salam, all of those prophets were from Bani Israel. So Isa alayhi salam came to them, yet they rejected him. They didn't follow him. Right? They still followed the whatever version of the Sharia of Musa that they had. They didn't follow Isa alayhi salam, although he was a messenger. He came with a new law. He came with the new Sharia. So he was supposed to be the one that they would follow next. And then when Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam came, a lot of them rejected it. A lot of them rejected the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and didn't believe in him either. And then, interestingly, right after this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about giving charity. Right after this. And very quickly, there's something that is a point to be made whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whenever He mentions the believers, if He says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, we have to pay attention, pay very close attention. Prophet ﷺ mentions this. And Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anh, he used to make it a habit that whenever he would read an ayah that begins with Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, he would repeat it twice. He would say Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, then he would go back and say Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, and then continue the ayah, just to emphasize that, look, if we are believers, if we are the believers that we claim to be, then we have to pay close attention to what comes right after this. It says, أَنْفِقُوا مِمَّا رَزَقْنَاكُمْ. Give from that which we have bestowed upon you. Whatever we have in this life is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala anyways. Right? We wouldn't have it if it wasn't by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whether we have, just a little bit of money or we're super rich, all of this came from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But we wouldn't have anything at all if it wasn't for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Min qabli an ya'tiya yawmun la bay'. Before, so give from what we have given you, from what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, before a day comes. And what is that day? It's the day of judgment. Before a day comes where there is no buying and selling, there's no trading, right? It'll be it. You can't earn anymore after that. On the day of judgment, everything is closed. All registers are closed, right? All sales are final. There's no returning, there's no exchanging, nothing. يَوْمٌ لَا بَيْعٌ فِيهِ وَلَا خُلَّةٌ وَلَا شَفَاعَةٌ. Right? So on that day, we're not going to be able to make any transactions. We're not going to have any friends. right? None of the people close to us, none of our friends, none of our relatives, nobody will be there to help us on that day. Wala shafa'a, and there's no intercession, right? The only intercession we have will be from those whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed to intercede on our behalf. And the greatest of intercession is the one that will be from our beloved Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But if we're trying to rely on anyone else, they're not going to be there for us, right? Our parents are not going to be there for us. Our friends are not going to be there for us. Our children, they're not going to be there for us, right? Only those whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed to intercede on our behalf will be able to on that day. And we don't know who they are. Right? This knowledge is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. So we need to make sure. Why is he mentioning this? Because this is a way to guarantee, right? Because the ending of the ayah goes, وَالْكَافِرُونَ هُمُ الظَّالِمُونَ, and the disbelievers are the ones who are wrong, who are unjust, right? So in order for us to make sure we are successful, we need to give from that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to us, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives to us. This is the transaction we make with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He gives to us, and in turn we are thankful to him. And by showing that thankfulness, we also give to others from that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to us. And then comes the greatest ayah in the Qur'an, Ayatul Kursi. Ayatul Kursi talks about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how his greatness, right? He is the living, right? He is the one. He has the most perfect life. He's always been there. He is the first. He is the last, right? He is the only one, right? So because he is the ever living, he is Al-Hayy, right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he does not sleep. He doesn't even get tired. There's a story that Musa alayhi salam, he once asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how come you never sleep? Right? How come you never rest or sleep? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he told Musa alayhi salam, why don't you stand and hold 2 buckets in your hands? Right? Just put your arms out and hold 2 buckets and just keep standing. So Musa alayhi salam, he stood there, and then eventually, of course, his arms got tired and he dropped the buckets. He couldn't hold them anymore. Right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that this is why, I cannot get tired and I can never rest. And of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he doesn't need to. He is the all-powerful. But this is an example that we can comprehend with our limited capacity. Right? Our brains can never fully comprehend what exactly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, who exactly he is. Only what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed to us, because his ability, his power, everything is limitless, is boundless. So Musa alayhi salam, he finally understood. Like if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala were to ever sleep, were to ever get tired, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala holds all of creation in his hands, right? He is the one who sustains everything, the entire universe, all of existence, the heavens and the earth. All of this is sustained by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's not befitting that somebody, the being, the deity, the God that does all of this, it's not befitting that he gets tired. It doesn't make sense, right? Even if you think about it, like how can somebody whose responsibility is to maintain all of creation in the heavens and the earth, how can they get tired? How can they have sleep? And then for him is everything that is in the heavens and the earth, right? لَهُ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ. And then the ayah ends off, مَنْ ذَا الَّذِي يَشْفَعُ عِنْدَهُ إِلَّا بِإِذْنِهِ يَعْلَمُ مَا بَيْنَ أَيْدِيهِمْ, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows everything, right? وَمَا خَلْفَهُمْ وَلَا يُحِيطُونَ بِشَيْءٍ مِنْ عِلْمِهِ إِلَّا بِمَا شَاءَ. And then وَسِعَ كُرْسِيُّهُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. It mentions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's kursi, right? His throne, his chair. Sometimes it's translated as a footstool, but it can be, when you think of the word throne, of course we don't know the exact details of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's throne, but we get an idea in our head of what a throne is. And that is, it's more vast than all of the heavens and the earth. And each heaven is much greater than the heaven before it. So the second heaven is vastly greater than the first heaven. And it's said that it's like throwing a ring into the desert. So the first heaven is like throwing a ring into the desert. And the seventh heaven, compared to the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his arsh, his kursi, is like throwing a ring into the desert. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's throne itself is so much greater. than the heavens and the earth. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he is the most high, and he is the greatest. He is the most majestic and the greatest. And he is the one who has created us and is the only one worthy of our worship. And then of course Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about there's no compulsion in the religion. And then he goes into three stories, and I'll quickly go over these three stories. The first two stories having to do with Ibrahim alayhi salam, and one story having to do, and it was said to be about Uzair alayhi salam, one of the he's said to be a prophet from Banu Israel. So the first one was Ibrahim alayhi salam speaking to the king at that time. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he gave these people, he allowed these people to be kings. And some of them were evil, like Fir'aun and Namrud, who was the king during the time of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And some of them were good, like Dhul Qarnayn. And of course, the Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salam, he was granted kingship from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Namrud was one of those evil kings. He was evil because he was a disbeliever. And he asked Ibrahim alayhi salam, who is your Lord? So Ibrahim alayhi salam said, إذ قال إبراهيم ربي الذي يحيي ويميت. Ibrahim said that my Lord is the one who gives life and death. So Namrud, in English, it's translated to Nimrod. And in today's usage of the word Nimrod, it means somebody who's an idiot, somebody who's stupid. So Namrud, he thought that he was clever, and he said that, look, I can do that too. So he brought two prisoners. One was meant to be freed, and the other one was meant to be killed. So then he said, the one who's meant to be killed, I'm going to let him go. So I'm granting him life. And then the other one who was meant to be freed, I'm going to kill him, showing that he gives life and he gives death. But then Ibrahim alayhi salam, he was very good at debating. He was probably the Prophet alayhi salam who debated the most. Right? He debated with his father. He debated with the people who were worshipping the stars and the planets. Right? He debated with Namrud. So he told the king that, look, my Lord is the one that makes the sun rise from the east and set in the west. Then of course Namrud, he couldn't say anything to this. Nobody can claim to be able to do this. No human can claim that they're able to make this happen. And then the next story is said to be about Uzair, who he was passing by a city that had been destroyed. And during that time, there was another tyrant ruler by the name of Nebuchadnezzar. Right? I believe in Arabic it's Bukht al-Nasr. And he completely came and kicked out Banu Israel from Jerusalem. So he was walking by one of the cities that had been destroyed. And he just asked in the back of his head, how is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala going to bring the dead back from the living? Bring the living to the dead, right? كالذي مر على قرية وهي خاوية على عروشها قال أن يحيي هذه الله بعد موتها. After something has died, how is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala going to bring it back to life? So what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did was he caused this man to die, and it was during the day. And when he was brought back to life, it was later in the day, right? But in reality, he was made to be dead for 100 years. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose to bring him back at a time that was later in the day than from the time he had died. So he thought that maybe I was just knocked out for a few hours. But then he was asked, angels came down and asked him, قَالَ كَمْ لَبِثْتَ قَالَ لَبِثْتُ يَوْمًا وَبَعْدَ يَوْمٍ. He's like, maybe I was out or maybe I was dead for just a day or part of a day. And then they said, no, you were dead for 100 years. And look how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring life back to the dead. And then he saw his donkey that was with him. He saw all of the bones be brought back together, and all of the flesh and the meat be put back onto the bones and the skin. And he saw how his donkey was recreated and brought back to life. So it shows that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is capable of doing all things. And then similar to this, Ibrahim alayhi salam, again, he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَإِذْ قَالَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ رَبِّ أَرِنِي كَيْفَ تُحْيِي الْمَوْتَى. Ibrahim, he just wanted to know, how do you bring life back to the dead? So then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قَالَ وَلَمْ تُؤْمِن. Do you not believe? Of course Ibrahim alayhi salam believes. He's Khalilullah, he's the best friend of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He believes. He just said, قَالَ بَلَا وَلَكِنْ my heart. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him to cut up 4 birds and put them in 4 different mountains. and call out to them, right? He cut them up into pieces, and then he put them on mountains, and then he called out to them, and they came back to them uh, as if nothing had ever happened to these birds, right? And then just to wrap up the rest of the juz, it begins to talk about charity again, right? Giving for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and how not to ruin our charity, how not to nullify our charity, right? How do you do that? One, you do it by showing off, by reminding people of your charity. Like, oh, you should praise me for doing this. I gave this and I did such and such. You should praise me for it. Or by being abusive with your language, right? So the two ways that we can that we nullify or ruin our charity is by one is by reminding the people of our charity, which is not okay in and of itself, right? This is called man. And then adha is like using bad language to like, oh, here, take it, like, you're worthless, you're poor, just take this, these types of things ruin our charity, just like it can wipe away the good that we got from giving for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just like the rain will come and wipe out the dust, right? And then there's some more rules and regulations mentioned in the surah, like about giving loans, loaning to people. This is called dain, right? So ya ayyuhalladhina amanu idha tadayantum bidaynin ila ajalin musamman faktubu, like have it in writing, and just some more rules and regulations. And then of course the other light that was given with Surah Fatiha, the end of Surah Al-Baqarah, these talk about again Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and obeying him. And there's a beautiful dua that comes right after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying that there is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not afflict us with that which we cannot bear. La yukallifullahu nafsan illa wus'aha, right? Everything that comes to us in our life, we are able to bear it. We have to keep this in mind. We have to keep this in mind so that we never lose hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We will always be able to get through anything in life because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not test us or afflict us with that which we cannot bear. And then the very beautiful dua, ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا وأخطأنا ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إصرا كما حملته على الذين من قبلنا ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. Very beautiful dua to conclude the Surah Al-Baqarah, one of the greatest surahs in the Qur'an. And then begins Surah Ali Imran. Surah Ali Imran. It's the other half of the juz is Surah Ali Imran, and it continues into the fourth juz until the last quarter of the juz. Right? But the beginning of Surah Ali Imran is basically like an introduction to the surah. Talks about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala again, some more du'as. ربنا إنك جامع الناس ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة ربنا إنك جامع الناس ليوم لا ريب فيه. And then it begins to speak about the family of Imran. And there's a very, and I'll conclude with this, there's a very beautiful portion of this where it talks about the wife of Imran. It begins with إِنَّ اللَّهَ اصْطَفَى آدَمَ وَنُوحًا وَآلَ إِبْرَاهِيمَ وَآلَ عِمْرَانَ عَلَى الْعَالَمِينَ. Verily, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen Adam, Nuh, the family of Ibrahim, and the family of Imran over all of mankind, right? So the Prophet Adam alayhi salam, Prophet Nuh alayhi salam, and the family of Ibrahim, so Ibrahim, Ismail, Ishaq, and the rest of the prophets that came from him. And then specifically from the family of Ibrahim, so you can look at it this way: from Adam alayhi salam, specifically from his children, Nuh alayhi salam, and specifically from the descendants of Nuh alayhi salam, Ibrahim and his descendants, and specifically from Ibrahim's descendants, the family of Ali Imran. Of course, the chosen one out of all of them is Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. But from the Ali Imran, you get Isa alayhi salam, whose mother was Maryam, whose father was Imran. So Imran's wife, it mentions, إِذْ قَالَتِ امْرَأَةُ عِمْرَانَ رَبِّ إِنِّي نَذَرْتُ لَكَ مَا فِي بَطْنِي مُحَرَّرًا فَتَقَبَّلْ مِنِّي إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ. She doesn't know what is in her stomach. She was pregnant with Maryam alayhi salam at the time. She doesn't know what is in her stomach. But she says that whatever is in my stomach, whether it's a boy or a girl, I give it on your behalf, for your sake, to be nothing but a worshipper of you, O Allah. And I hope you accept it from me. فَلَمَّا وَضَعَتْهَا قَالَتْ رَبِّ إِنِّي وَضَعْتُهَا أُنْثَى. So when she gave birth, she saw that it was a woman. وَلَيْسَ الذَّكَرُ كَالْأُنْثَى. And the woman is not like the man, right? We all have our differences. Man was not created like woman, and woman's not created like man. We have our differences. Uh, وإني سميتها مريم, and she's going to name it Maryam. وإني أعيذها بك وذريتها من الشيطان الرجيم. This is a very beautiful dua which we should all make for ourselves and our children always, right? She is saying that she is seeking refuge on behalf of this newborn baby, and seeking refuge on behalf of this baby's children as well, all of the descendants from this baby as well. And Maryam alayhi salam and Isa alayhi salam were said to be the only two babies that did not cry upon having been born, because what happens is that shaitan comes and scares the baby into crying and pokes the baby. But because of this dua, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answered it and did not allow Maryam alayhi salam and Isa alayhi salam to be poked by the shaitan. And then the rest of the Jews just talks about giving da'wah to Ahlul Kitab, the Jews and the Christians, right? By talking about Isa alayhi salam and all of the other aspects that we share in common, especially through Isa alayhi salam. So we'll conclude there, inshallah. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from all of us, and accept our fasts and our prayers and our du'as, and allow us to benefit from our time that we are spending, during Ramadan especially. And whatever I have said that is correct is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and whatever mistakes I may have made is from my own weakness and from the shaitan. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون، والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.